Question is, you have 100 devices that connect to an Azure IoT hub. You plan to use Azure functions to process all the telemetry messages from the devices before storing the messages. You need to configure the functions binding for the IoT hub. Which two configuration details should you use to configure the binding? Options are Option A, the name of the resource group that contains the IoT hub. Option B, the IoT hub's connection string shared access key that has service connect permissions. Option C, the connection string of the Azure Event Hub compatible endpoint from the IoT hub built-in endpoints. Option D, the Azure Event Hub compatible name. Correct answer is option C and option D. The connection string of the Azure Event Hub compatible endpoint from the IoT Hub built-in endpoints and the Azure Event Hub compatible name. Next question is, you have an Azure IoT solution that includes an Azure IoT Hub and an Azure IoT Edge device. You plan to deploy 10 Bluetooth sensors. The sensors do not support MQTT, AMQP, or HTTPs. You need to ensure that all the sensors appear in the IoT hub as a single device. Solution: you configure the IoT Edge device as an IoT Edge transparent gateway. You configure the sensors to connect to the device. Does this meet the goal? Options are yes or no, and correct answer is no. Next question is, you have an Azure IoT solution that contains an Azure IoT hub. You need to ensure that the IoT hub configuration is compliant with the Health Insurance Probability and Accountability Act HIPAA audit logging requirements. What should you use? Options are Option A, Azure Advisor Recommendations. Option B, an Azure Policy Definition. Option C, Azure Monitor Alerts. Option D, an Azure Sentinel workspace. Correct answer is option B, an Azure Policy Definition. Next question is, you have an Azure IoT solution that includes an Azure IoT Hub, a device provisioning service instance, and 1000 connected IoT devices. The IoT devices are allocated to two enrollment groups. Each enrollment group is configured to use certificate attestation. You need to decommission all the devices in a single enrollment group and the enrollment group itself. Which three actions should you perform in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate actions from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. This is the answer area. And this is the correct answer. Next question is, you have an Azure IoT hub that receives messages from an IoT devices. The messages are serialized as protobuf. You need the IoT hub to route the messages. What should you do first? Option A. From the Azure portal, add desired properties to the device twin. Option B. Configure the IoT device to add application properties to the messages. Option C. From the Azure portal, configure the IoT hub to add message enrichments. Option D. Configure the IoT device to add ASCII encoded properties to the body of the messages. Correct answer is option A. From the Azure portal, add desired properties to the device twin. Next question is, you are developing a custom Azure IoT Edge module. The module needs to identify the device ID of the local device. Solution: you configure the module to read the product info property of module client. Does this meet the goal? Options are yes or no. Correct answer is no. Next question is, you plan to deploy an Azure IoT hub. The IoT hub must support the following. First, 3 Azure IoT Edge devices, 2500 IoT devices. Second, each IoT device will send a 6 KB messages every 5 seconds. You need to size the IoT hub to support the devices. The solution must minimize costs. What should you choose? Options are Option A, 1 unit of the S1 tier. Option B, 1 unit of the B2 tier. Option C, 1 unit of the B1 tier. Option D, 1 unit of the S3 tier. Correct answer is option D, 1 unit of the S3 tier.